Hello, everybody. Here we are with yet another episode of Holistic Health Happy Hour. And I think this is episode 18, I think.
Is
Um,
it 18 or 19?
one of the two, somewhere in that realm.
We've lost track.
Saturn's in retrograde. We do what we can.
Yeah.
Anyway, welcome, welcome. I am Julie Sherwood, your Best Hopes Wellness Coaching, where I take the wellness realm into the stars, and I also do root cause therapy work to help you kind of remove the roadblocks to what your roadmap shows for you in the stars. Wellness coaching and Reiki. So, wellness in a mind, body, spirit kind of way. And I'm joined here by my lovely co hostess, as always, my dear.
Hi, I'm Maria Schumacher. I'm Vian at Venus13.com. Venus-13.com is my website. And I look at spiritual wellness, really, mostly spiritual wellness from an esoteric perspective. I'm a nearly lifelong practicing witch. Um, I am a 13 sign constellational astrologer. I write a daily astrology blog on Facebook, and I have a Patreon channel that my lovely co-host will put the links to
Yes.
uh, after this, so I won't bore you reading them out here. But yeah, you can find me.
Yes.
Mhm.
And ask her about sacred writing work. It's powerful stuff. So I'm just going to plant that little seed for everybody. And for those of you who have followed us along this journey to this point, we usually chat about the new moon and the full moon cycles. So we kind of come on like twice a lunar cycle. But we decided to do something a little different this time.
That's
So,
right. We had been talking about, when we started this venture. Julie and I both agreed that we were just going to be super mellow about it and kind of let it go where it went. We had no huge goals or intentions for it other than it be fun for us and
yes.
therefore maybe connect with somebody. And it occurred to us just last time that's like, everybody does a new and full moon report. Some really great astrologers only do new and full moon reports. And not only did we hate to steal their thunder,
Hmm.
but we also want to give ourselves time to read them. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I want to follow these guys. I don't want to listen to me. I want to read her. So, yes, we've decided now to come to you on the quarter moons, which
Hmm.
almost nobody does.
Right. And why did we pick the quarters?
We picked the quarters, A, because almost nobody does them,
Hmm.
and B, because moon square sun are really the most challenging days of the lunar cycle. Not only because a square is literally a challenge,
Hmm.
but also because it's really you pushing against yourself
Hmm.
for a little bit, going into a growth period. Am I still screen sharing here? All of
Yes,
that?
you are. Yep, we're on
Okay.
October 24th. And I just want to tag off of that too, because you get the new moon cycle where it's the start, it's the low quiet period, and that's collectively speaking. I have different thoughts about how it may relate to you in your personal moon cycle, but the general gist is the beginning of the lunar cycle is where you just lean into what is this energy that's going to come forward in the next, 27, 28 days. And then the full moon is kind of the culmination of that, right? Whereas the quarter moons are kind of the checkpoints. So the first quarter moon between the new and the full moon are kind of, all right, you've set the intentions. Have you started to move forward a little bit with those intentions? Have you taken some action in that direction? Because you're going to get ready to hit the peak. It's sort of like you're in the roller coaster going up the hill, right? And
Hmm.
if you don't get in and strap in, it's going to go up the hill without you. And then the third quarter is the checks and balances. Okay, you've reached the peak, you're starting to come down the hill. Did you finish everything you intended to finish during this lunar cycle before you go into the restful phase, getting ready for the new one? So these are the challenge points, the kick you in the ass points. So, and I want to share one little thing I heard earlier today, and I was sharing it with Maria in our green room chat. Was I heard somebody saying that, and I'm just going to say the general gist, another astrologer said squares, many astrologers will call them challenging, hard aspects, difficult aspects, negative aspects. And I, and Maria too, ascribe to more the word challenging, right? And the way this came up in this little blurb I was listening to today was the squares are the hurdle that you have to clear to meet the challenge. And I really liked that. So,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yes, yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, how might we do that?
How might we do that? What a good question. So that's what we're going to start talking about now. And it sort of gives sort of gives us a chance, I think, to get a little more personal with those of you who follow us and those of you who come to us, because we want it to be about that. And that was another goal of ours when we started these podcasts, was that we want them to be individual and personal to our listeners. We want to be able to help people understand how the astrology is landing in their body and navigate, what's going to come through.
The energies, right,
Ah,
right.
so I, I personally, I always find moon square sun days actually challenging.
hmm
Actually, like you're sliding along and everything is going on fine, and then moon square sun and something feels frustrating,
hmm
and which is kind of the epitome of a challenge, isn't it? That feeling of being frustrated,
hmm
and it's how we respond to that
Yes.
that can make all of the difference in your growth. Um, we were talking earlier, Julie and I, about how when your kids, little kids, on purpose push against themselves. You always want to be doing something a little bigger, a little more, a little. I want to get over that hurdle. I want it to be difficult. I want it to try something new, and let me figure it out. Um, and for those of us who keep that their entire life, some of us keep that in certain aspects of our life where we always are anxious to keep pushing against ourselves. Some of us meet with challenges that leave a scar,
hmm
you know
hmm
what I mean?
hmm
And make it hard to continue. And some of us get programmed out of it. Some of us get some very bad advice growing up that might lead us to feel that if something is hard or difficult, you're doing it wrong.
hmm hmm
You
And
know,
and it's that I want to hit on the word growth because we talked about this too. Is when you look at a challenge and you rise to that challenge, there's a magnificent opportunity for growth, which is what
yeah,
squares invite us to look at. And think about the time that you had a big challenge in front of you and you were a little, butterflies in the belly about it, and yet you still met the challenge. You went into it head on and you jumped that hurdle. The
yeah,
high that you get knowing you cleared that hurdle and you met that challenge is greater than if you just do a little thing that's somewhat easy, right? Think about that. The energy in that. That's what this sun and moon square brings.
yes.
hmm
Twice a month.
Yes, it does. So you don't get to escape it.
You kind of don't.
Mm-mm.
Although, we try. And again, I think when dealing with the moon square sun, the number one thing to keep in mind is that it's not going to feel easy. And it's okay if something is, wow, why does this feel hard? Because it's supposed to, right? Because that's the nature of nature.
Mm-hmm.
That they call them growing pains for a reason. Growth is you literally pushing against yourself.
I had an image that came in my mind as you were saying that, and the word friction came up. And
Yeah.
I had this image of like sanding a piece of wood. You have to create that friction so that the paint can go on more smoothly. It's like that.
Mhm.
It's like you get the sandpaper for the square part of it, and then as soon as that square clears, it's like, Oh, now I can paint.
That's right. Yeah, the abrasion, but then
Yeah.
once the roughness gets smoothed out.
Mm-hmm.
So another another good reason to be talking about squares right now is that huh, um, is that this particular year has actually been a very square year. I mean, really, Pluto has been square somebody or another all freaking year.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my daily today, I wrote that this was like the year of Pluto. We've had a lot of Pluto going on. Um, and he started out square to the nodes, and then he was square to somebody else, and now he's square to the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So we are right now in a quadruple square phase, right? We're in what's called a grand cross, where
Mm-hmm.
it's four bodies in square to one another.
Well, it's interesting too, as you were saying that we're also numerologically in a year that's an eight. So 2024, 2 plus 2 plus 4 is an eight. It's like two squares. It's like even the nature of the year itself
Yes,
is like square, square,
yes,
square.
yeah,
Um,
lots of fours.
and before we venture too far down the square road, haha, shall we recap just like very briefly what the new moon was and what the full moon was, what the placements were.
Oh,
So we had Virgo new,
yeah, we had a
just
Virgo
briefly
new
touch on
and a
it, yeah.
Pisces full.
Full, right. Just so
Yep.
people remember where the cycle started and where it culminated.
Mhm.
Yep. And now we're
Virgo.
looking at a square with the sun still in Virgo. Yes, if you go outside, use your sky app, you will see the sun is not in Libra, it is in Virgo. Sorry, soapbox here. Yes. And the moon on the 24th, when it does perfect the square, will be in Cancer. So, and that's her happy stars.
Yes, that's her home stars of Cancer. She
Hmm.
will also be in a what have I got here? In a separating opposition to Pluto. Pluto and Mars are in an approaching opposition. So they generate the tension of polarity. Um, Moon will cross over Mars and be part of that just before she perfects her square to the moon. So really the moon lights up this existing Grand Cross.
Hmm.
Why it lights up this whole thing.
Hmm.
And whenever the moon is involved, whenever the moon is involved, she makes it personal.
Oh yeah.
Yep. This the moon is always and I think that no matter where the moon was when you were born, the living moon in the sky is always personally attached to each individual.
Right. Right.
And so it's always going to affect us personally. Now it can have an effect on the collective through that in some obvious way, but it always makes it personal. It's always an opportunity for what's going on to be pulled right inside of you.
Yep. Yep.
That's what I mean by that. Um, would you agree, Julie?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's that personal interior soul self, if you will. It's
Yeah.
it's the inside part, whereas the sun is the outward illumination of the ego and driving energy and all that. So you can imagine why the squares are a challenge, right? It's like, in the room coming in behind me is the sun, and in the side door comes the moon, and they crash into each other. Now, what do
Right.
you do with that? So it's like you've got the sun, wah, blaring the horn, and the moon is just floating on in, and it's like they crash into each other. So then, how do you write the crash?
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I'm full of metaphors today. Jeez,
I love it.
I tell ya.
So what's going on with this Grand Cross generally before the moon becomes part of it, right? What's going on with this Grand Cross between Mars and Pluto, Sun and Eris?
Oof. Mars and Pluto, you hear a lot of, so I'm going to draw a circle around where these little guys are hanging out. Notice the first thing right away to me is they're both on a cusp.
Yep, they're
So
cuspy.
immediately. And then you also have a personal planet, Mars, that moves fairly quickly through the zodiac or the ecliptic. And you've got Pluto who drags his ass forever and a day, 248 years to go around the circle. And, so it's a more of a generational, longer term collective energy, if you will. So you've
Mhm.
got them in a dynamic tension to each other as an opposition. Oppositions are like you have the seesaw or the teeter totter, and if one is more pronounced than the other, then the teeter totter flips around, right? So how do you even out the tension between the two so they stay balanced? And that's a tough one with these two. Just by the nature again of the personal planet, the fiery individual Mars against the transformational death, rebirth, lord of the underworld, Pluto, right?
Well, yeah, yeah. So they give you that natural kind of, okay, I am the planet of action. I want to move, I want to go, I want to do stuff, I want to get it over with, I want to do the thing. And
Right.
Pluto is like, well, that's cute, sunshine, but this is going to take as long as it takes, right? So just deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's about as much negotiation as Pluto does. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I mean, you can want to move fast as much as you like,
Mm-hmm.
but it simply is going to take the time that it takes. And this process is happening, and there you are.
And especially
Oh,
because he was just in retrograde, Pluto was. So,
yes.
his forward momentum, as slow as it is even slower right now. He's going to take a little while to kind of catch up to the party.
Yeah,
But what adds to that dynamic tension, not only the personal planet against the outer planet, is the fact that they're both on a cusp.
right.
So, that energy between the two constellations of the cusp, it's not a clear. It's sort of like that fuzzy radio dial can't quite tune in because we're not
Yes.
quite in Cancer yet, Mars. It's still got a little
Mhm.
fuzz of Gemini going here. So, and the same with Pluto coming out of Sag into Cap.
Mhm.
So you've got that friction going on too.
Add to that the fact that that opposition, that polarity, is in square to another opposition polarity of Sun and Eris. Now, there's a polarity for you. It's very loose. These guys are separating,
Yeah,
but it's but it's still there.
yeah.
So and this is really really interesting because in as much as that self does not like, it's really funny. Eris is a tough planet for the sun to be in contact with at all, because generally Eris is another one of those planets that is denied, that represents things that are denied, that are rejected, that are, vilified, that we don't like to see, you know.
And she moves slowly as well. She's a 550-year transit, I believe.
Yep.
So here we are again, a really slow mover against something else that moves comparatively much quicker.
Yeah, the granddaddy of all personal planets, right? It
Yeah,
just doesn't get much more personal than the sun,
right,
except for the moon. But we'll get there.
right,
Um,
right.
so here they are, and Sun Square Pluto, has its own bag of baggage. Sun Square Mars has its own bag of baggage. Eris Square Mars has its own bag of baggage, and Eris Square Pluto has its own bag of baggage. And by the way, because those two move so slow, they're in square for decades. I mean, Eris and Pluto are Eris Square Pluto is defining a generation.
Oh, and then some.
Like,
Probably a
yeah,
couple, two, three
defining a
generations.
millennium, really.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
what it was clicking with me too was, again, Pluto, the Lord of the Underworld, the one that, don't play nice in the sandbox if you don't listen, right? He's going to yank that rug out from under you, but he's going to do it a little at a time, right, 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 right. And then all of a sudden it's going to go yank. Eris, I think, has a similar energy to her. She's the same way. She don't play nice if you don't listen.
Nope.
She rolls the golden apple into the wedding. Ha ha, now go fight, right? So I think
Well,
there's that
it,
energy.
yeah, but it's also, what are you going to do? And
Right.
how do you read that metaphor? It's just the metaphor of the Aerosmith is just brilliant. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's really something that we should take with us,
Mm-hmm.
because she's seen as the bad guy, the chaos agent, whatever, for throwing the apple into the party. But was she? I mean, the fact is that all that collection of people could have responded in any number of ways to that apple.
There's that square
She,
challenge.
exactly.
Yeah.
She held that mirror up to them and they did what they did. So when Eris is involved, we're going to see parts of ourselves that we don't like. That's why I say she represents the rejected, because we don't want to see ourselves as somebody who would, you know, be so base as to scrum for a golden apple.
Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
want to see ourselves as perfect and wonderful and amazing and beautiful all the time.
Yes, we do. And the other thing that's really interesting is take a look here. Now, granted, she's not in square, but Venus being in Scorpio. So again, the modern rulers, Pluto is, well, the lord of, not the ruler. We're not using that word anymore. Dispositor of Scorpio. So, but Venus, what do we value in that transformative death rebirth process? What do we value in looking within ourselves in a vulnerable, deep way so that we
Mhm.
can work with these squares? She's asking us to do this. Actually, she's kind of begging us to do this,
Yes,
you know.
yes, yes.
Because if we don't, these two are going to come in and say, yeah, hello, and especially triggered by Mars. So when
Yep.
Mars moves enough to be in square again with them, if we didn't pay attention now, we're certainly going to be paying attention when Mars comes into square,
Mhm.
because he's that warrior, that masculine energy that is very assertive, can be very aggressive. And right now we've got, he's not happy in the Cancerian stars, but by the same token, if we can move into his energy in those stars and really look at how we can be proactive within our moon selves,
Mhm.
the star, Mars is the self, and the moon is really that internal us. I think this is an opportunity to really harness the energy of Mars as he moves through Cancer.
Well, yes, and Mars in a higher octave.
Mm-hmm.
Mars as not the warrior, but the champion.
Yes.
And I think that the again the we have tended in this last couple thousand years to sort of pigeonhole Mars into the god of war aspect, and to
Mm-hmm.
pigeonhole Pluto in as much as we recognize Pluto, right? But into the death and destruction aspect, and we forget, or at least we don't notice that a broader view of Mars is the man of action, is the action hero, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He wants to have a mission.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to be doing something, and he wants to be doing something that matters.
Cancer will support that.
Yes.
That
So
protective
bingo.
energy.
That's
Yeah.
what I think. Everybody thinks that Mars doesn't like Cancer, and maybe not, in that the the stars of Cancer tend to squelch that warlike tendency, but it
Mm-hmm.
can also inspire Mars to his protective tendency. And here is where we can get the king, right? The king as the protector
Right.
of the home,
Mm-hmm.
of what is dear to him, of the land, and be inspired by the moon as an iteration of divine feminine. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm going off on a whole
No,
treatise,
this
but
fits beautifully.
right, and that polarity to Pluto suggests that that's exactly what he's transforming into. That he's coming, moving into that higher iteration of himself. I think to match the divine feminine that is also rising, because what we're wanting here is not, the rising divine feminine does not mean that we want to squelch the
No,
divine masculine.
no.
The divine feminine needs to rise so that the divine masculine can rise with her
Right.
and they can meet.
Right.
co-equally. When we when we kind of uh, diminished the divine feminine, right? When we turned the divine feminine into the damsel in distress, into the princess, into the little woman, into, the object that
Mhm.
needs to be rescued and taken care of, we also robbed the masculine of its purpose.
Yeah.
So we distorted the masculine by diminishing the feminine because the divine masculine that needs a co-equal divine feminine.
hmm Well, and the divine feminine as that nurturing energy, that's an action. To
Yeah.
nurture something is an action, right?
Hmm.
Now, granted, we can look at the yin yang, receptive, proactive, reactive, whatever words you want to use, but they have to equal in harmony for them to be in balance.
Yeah.
That's really super important. And the traditional ruler of Scorpio was who? Mars. So Venus
Mars,
hanging
yes.
out there is knocking on that door again,
Hmm.
saying, take a look. What do you value in that energy? Venus's values and his personal values, internal values. So, do what divine masculine energy do I have within myself that is in harmony with the divine feminine energy I have within
Right.
myself?
I
You know?
mean, and with this sort of Cancer to Scorpio energy, it can be, what do I love enough to defend?
Yes. Yes,
What do
and
I
protect.
love enough
Yep.
to put, to defend? What do I and maybe even, what do I need help defending?
Yes. Yes.
Where
Absolutely.
am I vulnerable so that I need, other people's resources?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Scorpio, Pluto, eighth house,
Yep.
to help me defend it. Oh, I just got chills. Ooh. Sorry. Oh, wow, I
It's
missed
a good
it.
thing we're recording this. We've got this saved for posterity. And
Yeah.
remind me, because for some reason, my usual Mercurian brain just took a left turn. Uranus is the higher octave of Mars, correct? Is that right? I may be wrong about that.
Yeah.
No, it might be Pluto. Sorry.
No, I
Uranus and Mercury are actually, I think,
yes.
octave.
Yes.
Okay.
Uranus is the higher octave of Mercury,
Okay.
and
Pluto's the higher octave of Mars. Yeah, that
yeah.
makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, because I was thinking if and Uranus is now also in Venus's happy place of Taurus. Yeah,
Still
yeah,
talk about can't get over it. We were saying that Uranus and Algol just need to, come out with it already. Stop hiding in the closet. We all know that you're a thing. You obviously can't get enough of her, Dave. Just admit it.
yeah.
You know,
They're literally. I mean, look at this.
they've not been more than a degree apart for 6 months.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, that's a honeymoon. Let's face it.
hmm hmm And he really, Uranus is in a nice trine with Pluto right now and a sextile with Neptune.
Yes.
So, there's some harmony in there in that spontaneous combustive Uranian kind of energy that could happen, but he's in retrograde. So I think there's a little bit of grace in there right now to kind of sit back a little bit and go, okay, how am I going to do this? Again, what do I value in that? Taurus.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. What do I value enough?
yeah.
Ask for help defending,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Which is
What other?
different from where do I need to be rescued? And I think this is a really super important point.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Well, and I've written a blog about the whole concept of guide versus rescue. You
Mm,
can look to a guide, you can look to getting insights and ideas, but if you're looking to be rescued, that's almost like that damsel in distress again, right?
right. Hmm.
I mean, I may need your protection, I may want your protection, but I need your guidance so that I perhaps can do it for myself at some point.
Exactly. But I've still got to put the effort into it.
Right.
And I think that this is where, Venus in Scorpio in trine to Mars in Cancer can really help us. There could be a
Yes.
real lesson in here of learning where we need to ask for help
Hmm.
rather than rescue.
And that also goes all the way back to the new moon cycle in Virgo. It's all about the self improvement, doing things to help others improve, looking how to organize and get to the details of it. But if you do it in a obsessive way, then you're going to constantly be in that cycle. So doing it in a way where there's some harmony in it, right? That trine energy in it, the flow, that's that full moon in Pisces. Surrender into the stuff that you can't control and you can't change. But
Mhm.
also lean into others. If it's something you really want to change, you can't change, but somebody else can help you. So it's
Yeah.
that beautiful energy of surrendering into, what is it, those Venn diagrams, they show what I can control, what I can't control, and then the middle is
Where do
harmony.
they overlap? Yeah.
Right,
Mhm.
right. And a lot of that has to do, I think, again, leaning into those around you that can support you in that process.
Here it is. We've spent a lot of time, we spent a lot of this year with, an activated Lilith and an activated Uranus, an activated, very, very personal, individual, I should say, very,
Hmm.
very individual supporting planets, where the rise of the individual has come and the individual stepping into their sovereignty and realizing their own power has been happening. And now we also, see, and also
Hmm.
need to learn some eighth house stuff. It's an 8 year, people. We were going to get there somehow. We're going to have to learn how to come together and help each other create a place where we can express more of that individuality. I may want to express my individuality. I may recognize that I'm sovereign, but I can't necessarily create a community that supports that all by myself.
And I think Uranus retrograde in Taurus supports that, right? Being your authentic you, creating something better for humanity, that future oriented, but you have to do it from a place of what do I value that I
Right.
can bring to the table to help others see what they value and then knit it together in that way.
Yes, you have to bring that authentic self to the mix. You
Yep,
can't just be you can't be bringing the damsel in distress, because the damsel in distress has nothing to offer to the
right.
group. She's needy.
Yes,
She's just needy.
right.
And by a damsel in distress, I mean a man can be running that too.
Oh, yeah,
You
it's the energy.
exactly. So I think that a lot of this, Scorpio, Cancer, Ophiuchus especially,
Mm-hmm.
opposite Uranus right now, because he's opposite all that,
Yep.
is asking us to, all right, identify what you have. Step into what you have. Lilith, take your sovereignty and then bring it to the collective and
Mm-hmm.
help each other.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is when you bring your authentic you to the table, then the other piece of it is I bring authentic me, Maria brings authentic her, and we see where we can marry together our talents and our traits and our characteristics in a way that we can carry that. I mean, to be funny, in our podcast, right? And if we realize, well, between the two of us, we've brought these things, and we really want a third thing to come in on another podcast, so we're going to ask somebody else who
Yeah.
has that authenticity to offer. Whereas if I were to hold back what I have, then Maria can't bring forward what she has in a way that marries with it,
Mhm.
right? And I think that's really important in our building of this future is really honoring what we truly have and allow for that sovereignty and uniqueness to show.
Yeah.
It's huge. It's huge. And don't be afraid to have there's that Scorpio again, that don't be afraid to be vulnerable.
Mhm.
Hey, I really, come to the table with this. Do you accept it? As opposed to I come to the table with this. Would you like to know more?
Mhm.
It's a different approach.
And also, like, I come to the table with this, and I do not have any of that. Like, I
Yes.
I know what I've got and I know what I don't got.
Right.
So when I accept what it is that I have that is unique, I can also accept what I don't have. and I can ask for help with that. And that is, understanding that I'm not ashamed. I don't have to hide what I'm not good at. I can either work to become good at it, or I can, and that's asking for help. Hey, I want to be better at accounting, which I don't, but
We
let's say
both
that
just
I
went,
did. Yeah, exactly. No, I'd rather do my own dental surgery. But let's just let's just say that I did. I want to be better at accounting. Um, I have to, number one, admit that I'm not good at accounting, and then number two, ask somebody to help me be better at accounting.
and you're not doing it from that femme fatale damsel in distress. It's
Right.
like you're standing in the divine masculine energy of confidence. I have this. I don't have this. Can you give me this? As
Right.
opposed
Can
to
you help me with
I
this?
have this, but alas, I don't have that to come rescue me. It's a whole different way of looking at it. That's that masculine feminine energy in balance.
Mhm.
Confidence with surrender, confidence with guidance, confidence, and it's not assertive aggressive femme fatale. It's again, how do you balance that? And I think this square sun right now, this third quarter waning moon is a good time to really look at that, right? That moon in Cancer, go within. What do you need for that protective feel,
Yeah.
and at the
What
same
are and also, yeah, yeah, what are you releasing right now?
yes,
That's the waning part.
yes,
So what are you letting go of from this cycle
mm-hmm.
that helps you you know, ultimately step into that
Mm-hmm.
self.
Yeah, the authentic self.
Fully. Yes.
Confidence, right? Do you happen to know, because I don't remember off the top of my head, is our next new moon Libra? Is the sun in Libra by then, or is it still the late degrees of Virgo?
I don't think we do. Our next new moon.
Yeah, because this is again, we're ending the cycle, but we're going to get ready to go into the next cycle.
This is
So
my
how
lucky day.
people might just start to think about, finishing off this cycle and get prepared for the next one.
All right. Let's see here. New moon is what? The
Um, I think it's
31st?
around the 6th or 7th of November.
Ooh, really?
Does that sound about right?
That sounds a bit late. Let's see.
Second?
Goodbye. It's on the 1st of November, November
Okay.
1st. And it is in Virgo.
Still the late degree. Okay, so we still have another opportunity to clean up the Virgo stuff. I wasn't sure how close
46,
we were.
46 degrees Virgo. Yep.
So we are at the tail end. So again,
Yeah.
as you're closing out the last Virgo new moon cycle with the Pisces full moon, and this Cancer Virgo square, just you're starting to really think about what the garden's going to look like in a couple weeks with that last few degrees. You got one more shot at it to prepare. So anyway, so there we are. We'll go ahead and get this posted. Well, of course, if you're seeing it on replay. So, and then should the stars align for us, then we'll do the next cycle in a couple of weeks. It'll be the first quarter cycle for that latent Virgo new moon. And that one we'll probably try to do live if it works out for both of us. But
Yeah.
we'll
Yeah.
continue
Yeah.
to alert y'all.
Yeah. The next square will be a waxing square. And listen, y'all, if you find that, because we're recording this a few days before the square, if
Right.
you find that things come up for you that you're like, ooh, I could use some help with that,
Hit us
check
up.
out our websites, reach out to Julie has some brilliant things. I mean, brilliant offerings that can help you navigate challenges with yourself.
Mhm.
I am here to testify, so yeah, please.
And I can wholly and completely attest to Maria's offerings too, because I've experienced what she's had to offer as well. And this is the beauty of our relationship. It's like, hey, can you hit me? This is where I don't know how to do this, but she does, and vice versa. It's a perfect example of that. So again, I've mentioned this in a couple of different videos we've done, she did some work for me with her sacred writing skills in the eighth house. I had some stuff going on there, so she helped me come up with a way to work with that and jump that hurdle to move into the positive flowing energy of the eighth house. So that's an example. So anyway, Julie Sherwood, Your Best Hopes Wellness Coaching, yourbesthopeswc.com, and
Mm, uh,
who the hell am I now?
Gabba gaga ga, Vion at Venus13.com, Venus-13.com.
Right. All right, friends, we will see you in cyberspace, and may the stars be with you. Oh, and Jupiter is visible in the sky right now, so go take a look.
Mm.
Yes, yes.